There you go. And we are live. Welcome, family, to another show. Man, we have a good friend of mine today on the show. He's going to drop a lot of good knowledge on us as far as technology and how to make money in technology, how to make six figures in technology, brother. Welcome to the show today, brother. Jason Thurman.
Thank you very much, Aaron, man. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a big fan of you guys' group and all the work that you're doing to connect people and create opportunity. Looking forward to this conversation, brother.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And so what drove you to have a career in technology?
Very good question. I've always been a little bit of a nerd, man. When I was a young kid, math has always been just kind of second nature to me. And I've always been curious. I used to love watching 3, 2, 1 Contact when I was a kid. Anything, science related, math related. I love aerospace, shuttle
Mhm,
launches and everything that was kind of science was my thing. But as I got older, um, you know, and went to college, I really sort of discovered um, like that I'm a problem solver, that I like being able to break complicated things down and figure them out and see the connections and patterns in sophisticated problems. Um, I don't come from a background, where I had the exposure growing up. You and I are both from Southwest Atlanta. We talked about this off camera.
mhm.
This wasn't just part of my environment growing up, or even as a young person. Once I got to college, I wasn't really into computer science or coding. I was more hardcore math and science. That was always sort of my bread and butter. Um, and back then, I went to Georgia Tech back in the late '90s. Streaming and the stuff that I do now didn't exist. So I had no idea that 20 plus years later I'd wind up sort of in this space doing what I'm doing. But it all started with just having a curious mind, always learning. And as I sort of got into the professional space, before I was
Mhm.
in tech, I actually was in digital media in production. So I
Okay.
worked at Turner Broadcasting here in Atlanta, and I was working publishing content to CNN.com's website back in the early days. And it was doing that made me curious about how do these platforms and seeing things work. When I publish something to their content management system, and then 15 minutes later, back then, it pops up on all of their pages and it's dispersed throughout the entire world. That's kind of where it started with tech itself.
Mhm.
Given my sort of education background, like I say, heavy math, science, and that sort of thing, after working in digital media for close to 10 years, I became curious about that. Plus, I realized that I had sort of hit a ceiling in terms of the money that I would be able to make doing media and production. Even though that was a passion, it
Mhm.
was very difficult to make money. And this is before YouTube was a thing, and you had this sort of influencer model where if you could drive an audience and drive clicks, you could make a pretty decent living. That didn't really exist. So I went back to my roots. I actually hired a career coach towards the end of my stint at CNN.com, and
Mhm.
just did a skills assessment. What am I good at? What interests me? And after going through all of that for about 6 months, uh, it came back with, you need to figure out a way to take all of your experience in media, but also and combine that to something technical and data driven. And I had no idea what that would be, you know.
Okay.
So I started there. That's kind of how it started, and that was over 10 years ago now. But I didn't have a clear path to tech. Is my point. It was an evolution, and it took me years to figure it out.
Okay. So initially you went to school for what type of degree?
So I went to Georgia Tech and I got a degree in basically applied physics and engineering. So
Okay, wow.
I was always a physics and math. I used to tutor calculus in college. Math was, like I say, since eighth grade algebra, it was always my thing. I had a great teacher in eighth grade at Douglas High School here in Atlanta.
Shout out
Shout
to
out,
Doug. Shout out to Doug.
Dr. Butts, shout out Ti, shout out Killer Mike.
Mhm.
Um, but I had a teacher back then. I was in the magnet program for science and math, and she took it interest in me and helped me understand how to think about math and algebra at that time and understand the patterns, and it went
Mhm.
from there. And then by the time I got to college, Georgia Tech, man, I could do calculus in my sleep. It wasn't
Mhm.
even, I tested out of most of it. the thing was, at the time, we don't, in the black community at large, math and science really isn't promoted heavily. I grew up playing
Facts.
baseball.
Facts.
I grew up in the Jordan era. Everybody wanted to be like me, but I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't have it, you know. And so it was a lonely road. I did have support, my mother supported me, but it wasn't like, I don't want to paint a picture. I don't want the brothers in our group to think, oh, he came from a certain background. I didn't. I
Mhm.
grew up in Adamsville, Southwest Atlanta,
And
working
that's a
class,
rough area for y'all
rough
who don't
neighborhood,
know.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, crack
very
era,
rough.
I've seen it all. But I did know my mother, always was like, Jason, there's more to life than this, but you're gonna have to figure it out. So that's kind
Hmm.
of where it started for me. Um, my mother, when I was in 12th grade, came to me and was like, look, Jason, I'm the oldest of four. My parents were separating at that point. She's like, I can't afford to, let you stay home when you graduate in 6 months. I can't afford to send you to college either. So you're gonna have to, figure something out. So I ended up on my 18th birthday going and signing up for the military.
Oh
And
wow. Okay.
you know, that's an important part of my story because that's really what gave me the foundation in certain things that I didn't really pick up in my childhood. And
Hmm.
just coming from where we come from, you're just not given certain lessons, because you're just surviving. So my 4 years in the military, thankfully, I was exposed to, you know, I tested very well, and I was, you know, cleared for some elite training, and that's really what taught me the power of discipline and study, commitment to a vision. Those lessons really are what led me here to where I'm at now. And so I just want to reiterate that, you know, you can always learn the things that you don't have. You can always pick up skills, but it starts with that desire. It starts with that vision. So don't look at yourself, where you're from, or if you don't have an education. There's always the odds as black men in America are always stacked against us on at
Facts.
every level. So
Facts.
ultimately it comes down to your mentality, and what you want and your vision out of life, and are you willing to make the sacrifices to get it. And so that kind of brings me to kind of what's been on my heart, Aaron, about sort of what we're talking about tonight. When I made the post on in our group a couple nights ago, I didn't
Hmm.
want it to come across like a, get rich quick scheme or like a hustle. What I really want to do is give brothers the information and the tools that they can exercise themselves. And, as long as they have the commitment with the right information and the right approach, you can conquer anything. And so, yes, making a certain amount of money is the goal, and I've been able to do that. But the thing I really want to emphasize is that it's really about the intangibles, it's about your mindset, it's
Hmm.
about your discipline and commitment to your vision. Doesn't matter what it is you want to do. That's what's going to separate you from the pack. My philosophy is you're not me, you know, you're not nobody. Like, you got to kill me. There's two ways you got to deal with me. You got to kill me or pay me, but you
Hmm.
can't beat me.
Hmm.
And so I take that attitude, and that comes from the military. I take that forward. I've taken that into every situation because it's always against all odds, like the Tupac song. You're always living in that situation. And so even when you make it up and get up the food chain and get to the point that we're going to talk about later, where I was at in Silicon Valley making the big money, that survival thing still have there. So
Hmm.
that's really what I want to hone in on and focus on is the mindset, and then I'll give some tactics and some things specifically in tech that they should think about that could lead to these types of outcomes.
Yeah, man, they are coming in with all types of questions for you, and we're gonna get to those questions
Let's get it.
in a moment. Family, do me a favor, make sure you hit that like button for us. Now, I want to ask you just real quick before we get to the questions. Being a black male, black man, did you face any type of discrimination when you was working for like Silicon Valley or anything like that?
Constantly. So
Hmm.
the it's about microaggressions. You have to understand that in Silicon Valley and tech in general, these
Hmm.
most coveted positions in America, in the working world. They, especially out in California, and on the surface, California and Silicon Valley, paints this image, this picture of as a very progressive sort of liberal environment. But the fact of the matter is, when you're dealing with wealth accumulation and access to opportunities that are elite, there's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be that thing that you're going to have to deal with. So it was never as simple as me just sort of going in and being excellent at my job. I have to be excellent at my job, have to be excellent just to get access to the job. Once I
Mm-hmm.
get the job, be excellent while all the while I'm dealing with constant microaggressions. And I can go on some of that stuff. Um, but yes, in short, you're going to have to deal with that. That's why your mindset goes back to the very what I was talking about. Your mindset has to be ironclad. And
Mm-hmm.
I go back to it. You can only deal with me in two ways. You got to pay me or you got to kill me. You're not going to beat me. And so you have to approach every situation like that. But I don't want to come off sounding cocky. What I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that is I'm going to do whatever it takes. You know, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Um, and I've done that, and I'll continue to do that. So as long as I'm doing that, then I can be at peace with myself and know
Mm-hmm.
that whatever I accomplish, that's what was meant to happen. Versus, man, I wish I would have tried this. No, I don't have any of that because I
Mm-hmm.
know that anything that I've tried, it's been 1,000%, and some things just aren't going to work, and some people just aren't going to like you. And as a black man in this society, it's basically toxic. So on
Mm-hmm.
some level, there's going to be toxicity. And
Mm-hmm.
a big theme of the Passport Brothers group and the Black Men Travels group is escaping that toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
This place
Facts.
is kryptonite for us.
Mm-hmm.
When we leave
Facts.
America, we're Superman, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So but at some point, you have to make a decision about what you value, what your goals are, your family situation. Everybody's makeup is slightly different. But for me at 46, um, I've seen enough of it, and I can't just up and leave. I have a strategy and a long-term plan that I have to work through. But I understand the desire for a lot of brothers have to leave. I get that, and so
Facts.
I also want to provide the tools for them to execute that dream. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but you're gonna hear several words. I'm gonna repeat several words. Vision,
Mm-hmm.
discipline,
Mm-hmm.
execution. You know, those things are. It doesn't matter what you do. Those things are constant. In order for you to get to any kind of level that or where you have options, you have choice. And what it's all about for me, Aaron, it's not about
Mm-hmm.
money. It's not about material stuff. It's about peace.
Mm-hmm.
I want to control my time as much as I can. I want to live a peaceful existence as much as I can. So everything that I do is to that end. And also, I'm very close to my family. I want to also be able to be a support to them. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't chase money. And when I was making the money I was telling you about at Netflix, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
because I was, you know, chasing, the material stuff. I was chasing freedom and options and
Mm-hmm.
peace,
Mm-hmm.
and as we'll get into it, unfortunately, when you get to that level, it doesn't give you that. You can't have it all, you know. Uh, so, and I don't want to get too far ahead. I'll stop there.
Okay, okay. And we're going to ask you about your career at Netflix, but I want to catch this comment real quick and get your response
Hmm.
by Caesar Music. He says, I have a comp science degree, but nervous about the rigor of applying to tech jobs like Netflix or Apple. Do you want to respond to that?
Yes, great question, Caesar. So yeah, FAANG companies. So FAANG stands for Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. So
Mm-hmm.
FAANG companies are considered the gold standard in tech, and they
Mm-hmm.
typically pay more than everyone else. Although that's changing now, the market's a lot more competitive. But to answer your question directly, I've gone through, and I'll just be honest. When I got the job at Netflix, I had 12 interviews, and I got the Netflix job first pass. I interviewed with Google two separate occasions. The first occasion, 15 interviews, I didn't get the job. The second occasion, like 10
15.
interviews. Yeah, I didn't get the
Mhm,
job. And this is after, I was already in tech and was doing well. Um, and that's a whole nother thing. But to
mm,
answer your question, don't be nervous about it, Caesar. Be prepared.
mhm,
So if you feel like, you're not there yet, ask yourself, what more do you need to learn? You know,
mhm,
I have several good buddies, good brothers that are at Google now, doing very well. And it's just, and they told me, man, the process was the hardest process ever. It's hard for everybody. Just
mhm.
make sure you do the groundwork. You already got a leg up with a comp sci degree. Don't be nervous. There's they used to tell us, what's the difference between a hero and a coward? Do you know, Aaron?
The hero tries, right?
The hero, they're both scared,
Mhm.
but the hero will push forward in spite of the fear. The coward turns tail and runs. So
Facts.
it's you're gonna be nervous. You're gonna be afraid. Fuck fear.
Mhm,
Ask yourself, can I be more prepared? My first tech job, and I'll share this with you, after I transitioned out of uh, digital media production, I didn't have any tech experience, not professionally, and I was making this big pivot. I actually was laid off from my job, and this was shit 10 years ago now, and I had been doing all this groundwork, all this preparation, redid my resume, but I had no hard tech experience. But yet I'm trying to get into tech.
mhm,
Um, so this recruiter reached out, and I'm going to talk about the power of recruiters as well. This recruiter reached out to me. She saw my profile on LinkedIn and recognized that I had this technical education and all of this media experience. And there was this position at the weather company here in Atlanta at the time for media solutions architect. And she was like, Jason, I know that you haven't done this before, but you have all the right experience. Um, and I just feel like they need someone that can adapt, that's quick, that can learn quickly and bring all the background that you have. And she's like, "So I'm gonna take your application and submit you as a candidate." So fast forward about a month, it ends up being between two guys, me and another guy that had a lot more experience. So when I
mhm.
was supposed to go in and do the last round of interviews for this job, the last interviews got pushed by like 2 weeks. And so the recruiter called me like, I'm so sorry. I know you're ready to get through. I was like, you know what? It's all good. That's more time for me to prepare. So 2 weeks go by. I go into that final round with this panel of people, and they knew I didn't have any professional experience. I was so well versed in all of their platforms and all of what they were doing from a technology standpoint. They told me, they was like, Jason, the other guy has a ton more experience than you, but we're going to give you the job because you just came in here so buttoned up. You know, you know the technology better than we do. So that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. Don't look at anything as a setback. It's just more time to prepare. Preparation leads to victory. So don't worry about the difficulty of the process getting into Amazon, getting into Google, getting into Netflix. Just go in prepared. If you don't get the job, it's a lesson. Regroup, go back in, and give them the business.
Okay, okay. Shout out to K Houghton. He says, great stream. I got another question for you from Cameron Pritchett with a $1.99 super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, how do you get into tech sales with only teaching experience?
Good question. So I've never worked in tech sales, but what I do know, it's all about transferable skills. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm,
So given your current experience, Cameron, ask yourself, okay, what have I done really well as a guy, as a teacher? Teaching and sales, you know what they have in common? Anybody? Anybody? I'll tell you. The ability to tell a story. So teaching, if you could tell a good story, then if you can get through to those children, that's how you do it. You have to tech is the same thing. Think about potential customers, potential clients. They don't know the nuances of your technology. Can you
mm-hmm,
tell them a story about it, makes it relevant to them? That's what I'm talking about. So tech sales, doesn't matter. You have to ask yourself, one, what am I naturally good at? What's my passion? And then look for correlations. There's always a bridge between what you've done and where you want to go. So I would say, yes, you can get into tech sales. I can't tell you how, Cameron, but I can tell you what you should think about. Start with yourself. Start with your passion. Uh, ask yourself, when was I in the flow? When was I in the zone? And what was that thing? And can I take that thing, put it in a bottle, and translate that in a different space? That's where you start.
Okay, and so you can explain to the audience what are tech sales?
So tech sales is essentially business development. It's so platforms. So think of a platform like AWS, Amazon Web Services, is a cloud services platform.
Hmm.
So most businesses that you know of today, most of them are based on AWS. They store all their data. So a
Right.
tech salesperson essentially goes and looks for clients, lots more, no, businesses, B2B, business to business, and essentially sells them on the solution that they're offering, you know, and it's relationship building. A lot of tech, tech is still people, you know. So yeah, you have the tech part and the engineering, yes, but what makes people successful is emotional intelligence. They call it EQ, the
Hmm.
ability to connect. You know, again, a lot of these core skills translate across any domain. So Cameron, and think about think about that. Think about your emotional intelligence. Think about when you've dealt with difficult situations or difficult children. How did you overcome that through those soft skills? Because tech sales is the same thing.
Excellent, excellent. I want to give a shout out to Man Tomorrow MOT with a $10 super chat. He says they are looking of potential, not experience at that point. I guess he was referring to what you were speaking on earlier, as far as
Yes, the first
uh,
job.
the first job. Now,
So
let me
let
ask
me
you this, man.
yes.
Go ahead. No, go
So
ahead.
just to put a quick button on that, he's correct.
Hmm.
But as you move up the chain, they're looking for experience, because now you have
Hmm.
to have a track record of delivery. But to put a bow on that first experience I mentioned, I went in with no experience. And at the
Hmm.
time, I think when I got laid off, I was making about 80 grand. I
Hmm.
went to a job with no experience and was making 110 grand. And that was just off my preparation. So that's the
Hmm.
first point, guys. I want you to keep in mind. You know, maintain a constant state of learning. Preparation leads to victory.
That's a very good point. Very good point. So tell us a little bit more about your career at Netflix. Exactly what was your title and what was your role at Netflix?
Got it. So at Netflix, I'm a product manager. So some of you may be familiar with what that is, but product
Hmm.
managers are essentially the the guys that own the product, the software product, and we're responsible for, you know, ideating it, brainstorming like what it should be, how does it drive value, responsible for bringing in the right resources to design it, to build it, study the market to understand, does it fit the market? Once it's built, go out there and sell it. So a product manager, the best definition I've heard, they're like the mini CEO for a software product. So
Okay.
that was my title. But what I was responsible for at Netflix was the Netflix SDK. So SDK is a software development kit. So
Thanks.
it's basically an application that you can integrate into hardware. So the Netflix app, when you go to any device, I was responsible for 10-foot devices. So think smart TVs, streaming sticks like the Fire TV stick. Think set-top boxes, like you get
Hmm.
from your cable provider. So when you go to Netflix on those devices and select that app, it's the SDK that I was responsible for that powers that app experience. So that was my role at Netflix.
Okay. Okay. So you mean stuff like Roku's and Fire Sticks?
Yes,
Click on the application.
yes.
That was you was basically managing that application.
I was managing that application, responsible for the feature set, the development, the partner, the device partner relationships. So that Samsung, I had to travel to Korea and deal with Samsung and LG and take requirements, hardware requirements that when they're building the next year's model of TV, then this is what they have to be able to support for a Netflix experience. Same thing.
Hmm.
I was going to Taiwan and dealing with the chip makers. Like Taiwan makes, 85% of the world's chips. It's part of
Hmm.
the reason why we're in this whole thing right now. Biden's trying to build a chip fabrication facility in Arizona. That's a different story. But
Hmm.
I was in Taiwan dealing with the chip makers. Same thing, taking our requirements for hardware. I was in Japan going to Sony and Panasonic to say, hey, look, this is what we're going to be doing in the Netflix app. We need you guys to support this in your hardware with a certain amount of memory, with a certain amount of CPU speed, and all the things that happen underneath the hood. So yes, I was in a very technical, invisible role.
Mm-hmm.
And very high paying. So
Mm-hmm.
Netflix was like working in the league. You know,
Okay.
I was consulting, and I'll give a little bit of backstory. So I was consulting in Southeast Asia, in Bangkok. I know a lot of guys have interest in Thailand. First of all, I love Thailand, but
Mm-hmm.
I was over there, working for this telco, this telecommunications company that services most of Southeast Asia, and we were building video platforms for them, front end,
Mm-hmm.
back end. And so I would go over there and basically be responsible for all the work. I would take a team of engineers, I would deal with the client, I would deal with the legal stuff over there, build everything out, get it signed off on, and then sign for the money. So I did that for, little over a year, and that's when Netflix came knocking. And
Mm-hmm.
it all worked out. I went through that process. I have a funny story about my Netflix hiring process. So um, when it's like say being drafted for the league, because even though I was doing very well and making great money in the Valley, Netflix was known to be the top
Mm.
dollar.
So Netflix came and got you.
They scooped me up. Yeah, they came and
Oh
got
wow.
me,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, Aaron. It was like that
Okay.
Godfather
Right.
horse head thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like I had to
Right.
take it. So, but the story behind that. So I was working in Thailand, dude, burned out. I was over there, and this is summer or late spring 2018. The client
Mm-hmm.
was granted rights to stream that year's World Cup. So the World Cup's every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Their platform, their video platform, couldn't handle the load. Because you're talking about you know hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people at one time jumping onto your platform. So we had to make sure that their front end clients and their back end can manage all that traffic. And so we only had about 5 weeks to go over there, and I took 3 engineers, and man, we worked 80-hour weeks just to get it out the door. We were successful, not one crash.
Mm-hmm.
But I came back, and this is July of 2018. Took a trip down to Sasua to let off some steam. But while I was down in Sasua, I was like, you know what? I can't do this, man. This is just too hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm traveling. I think I logged like 200,000 miles in that one year. I lived
Mm-hmm.
on 777s, man. I was on
Mm-hmm.
EVA, ANA, Korean Air. Like felt like
Mm-hmm.
every other week I was on the flight to Asia, and it was my dream to do that. But it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a grind, and it goes back to that mental fortitude, that mindset we were talking about. But I was successful. Netflix came knocking, and it's about exposure. You know, my networking when I was out in San Francisco in the Valley, that's what led to the consulting job that led me to Thailand, and then doing that type of work put me on Netflix's radar because just I'm doing global work now. So that's kind of how that opened up. So anyway, fast forward, Netflix calls the week of my birthday. I get back from Sasua, and I'm like, I guess this is it. But I was completely kind of wiped out. They're like, look, we need you to prepare for your first round of interviews. We need you to put together a presentation on this topic, da 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 da. And I was like, okay, I guess I didn't think I had a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the day of that first round of interviews comes along, and Netflix, if you know about the Valley, is all the way south. It's like south of San Jose, and I was
Mm-hmm.
living in Sacramento at the time, so I had to wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, drive all the way down past San Francisco, all the way down to the end of the valley for my 9:30, you know, start. Anyway, my presentation that I needed, I hadn't done it yet. So I'm driving down there. Presentation still not done. I get
Mm-hmm.
down to Los Gatos where Netflix is located. I find a Panera Bread. I sit down, eat breakfast. In 45 minutes, I crank out that presentation. And I'm just like, you know what? Whatever. This is gonna have to work. I had done my
Okay.
research though. I done my
Uh-huh.
research, and I'm like, well, this is just it. So I go in, and dude, I knocked those interviews out the damn park.
Mm-hmm.
And the last interview of that day was the panel interview with so you have 5 people that you're interviewing with, then you have your panel. My panel is where I had to present my presentation. And I'm nervous the whole time. I'm like, oh shit, you know, I only did this in 45 minutes. Man, I broke that thing out. They loved it, crushed it.
Mm.
So I wrap up that day, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to come back for the second round in 2 days." So I had another 5 interviews 2 days later, but this time I had to fly to Thailand that second round of interviews. So make the drive back up to Sacramento, drive back down 2 days later, go in there, crush that last drive straight to San Francisco airport, fly out to Thailand for 8 weeks. And so I
Hmm.
actually get the job while I'm overseas in Bangkok and going back and forth. But to make
Oh
a long,
wow.
yeah, it was a wild ride, man. But
And that's
never,
a long flight too.
oh man, that's like 20 hours of travel, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and at the time, we take most flights through Taiwan. They leave at like 1 a.m. in the morning, and then you fly all over the night. It's like a 16-hour flight. Then you have another 5-hour flight from Taiwan to Thailand. So
Hmm.
it was a trip, man. But the point I wanted to make there about the brother who raised the thing about being nervous, like, don't be nervous, man. Just go in
Hmm.
there and do what you do. And I cranked my presentation out, and it was a hit because I knew what I was talking about. And I had to put that nervousness and that feeling of butterflies aside, you know, and just go in there, man, because you got to give yourself a chance. That's the thing. You're never gonna feel 1,000% prepared. You
Hmm.
just got to go in there
Facts.
anyway, right? It's always learning.
Facts. Facts. I want to give a shout out to Darius Hopper with a $2 super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, "What type of IT search did you get or recommend?"
So I don't have any IT certifications.
Hmm.
So I'm not the best to recommend, although I did read a lot of the comments in the initial post, and guys are getting, AWS certs, different types of networking certs. Whatever thing you're interested in, that's where you start. Look at the certification as like your entry point to learning. But the key is it has to be your passion. Like for me, I was in media for 10 plus years before I got to net. Well, actually longer than that. I was
Hmm.
always interested in digital media. It
Hmm.
evolved to Netflix. So my point to you is certifications are, you got to think about two different types of paths. There's the tactical, and then there's the strategic. There's the short term, and there's the long term. There's no shortcuts, right? So certifications are more of a short term tactical path. Strategy is strategic, and long term would be, okay, I start out here. What's the first job that I can get with this type of certification? And what money am I looking at? With certain type of certifications now, and this is a thing, one of the brothers raised the point about, do you need a college degree or not? And I think this is the perfect question to go with that.
Hmm.
It depends on what your interests are and what you want to do. For me, I went to Georgia Tech and got a technical degree for tech, but that's not for everybody. And there's many paths outside of that. I think what's beautiful now is there's more and more opportunity for uh, training and certifications without the need to go and get a degree. For instance, Google has a whole program that's designed to give you the certification you need to come and get a job at Google. And they're saying this is in place of a 4-year degree. So think about that. And a lot of these programs are subsidized to where you may not even have to pay the full amount. And to my knowledge, they're not super expensive. So that's what I would say about that. I hope that helps you, Darius. But it's all about your interest, and look at that certification as your entry point. But constant learning, like I said, constant learning, and strategically think about, where do you want to be 5 years from now? What other things are you going to have to learn after you get into your field? You get this certification and you start working in that industry. You're going to always ask yourself, write this down, guys. What else do I need to know to give me the advantage? What can I know that no one else knows? For me, that was after I made the transition into tech. And let me tell you something else. My first tech job was very difficult. I
Hmm.
was wondering, like, what did I do? And I got through that. There's always a learning curve involved. So don't get discouraged if, things seem hard. You got to fight through that. But this is the thing. It should always be hard. You're not making progress if it's not hard. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, there's a long path, there's a short path, but there's no shortcuts. If it's not hard, you're doing something wrong. So,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, after that first job that I got with no experience, I actually ended up doing very well. I got a promotion and took on the next job and did very well. Took on the next job, and that third job is when I started asking myself, like, you know what? I just don't know enough. I don't have depth in my. I'm going into these meetings with engineers and with leadership, and I don't feel like I can really speak to. I felt exposed,
Mm-hmm.
so I said, what else do I need to go learn? What else do I need to go do to go deeper? So that's what led me to move out to San Francisco and take that job out in the valley. I got hired for a job, another job that was really over my head at the time. It
Mm-hmm.
was a video infrastructure, like low level video engineering. And it was all like the first three months I was having headaches every day. Like, what did I do? They're just speaking JavaScript all day and I have no idea what they're talking about. Well, guess what? I stuck with it. And after about 6 months, I'm speaking JavaScript with them. So
Mm-hmm.
you can learn anything, but you have to have the commitment. And don't be afraid to say, you know what, I don't feel like I know this. I've been in meetings before where, you have these genius engineers, rock star types of guys. And I walk out of that meeting like, damn, I don't know anything. I'll go home and spend my entire weekend researching everything they were talking about. And by that Monday, I'm the goddamn expert and I
Mm-hmm.
can speak to it just like they could. Be
Mm-hmm.
willing to, like I said, climb, to take that next hill. Don't, if there's something you don't know, go learn it. I will say my frustration, and this is not to blanket generalize, but
Mm-hmm.
brothers, you gotta hold yourself to a higher standard and be disciplined in your thinking, be disciplined in your communication. That's part of the game too. Be willing
Mm-hmm.
to go learn. I'm not telling you to go get a 4-year degree. Go be willing to go learn something. Go get the certification.
Mm-hmm.
Go network. That's another key thing. Network, network, and network more. Because the minute that you get into your field, people tend to over rotate, over index media, but that's not really what does it. You still need FaceTime. You need to be able to go meet people that are in your space, break bread with them, and then that's how opportunities come your way. The consulting thing in Thailand came to me through this networking group that I was in San Francisco, and I was the only black
Mm-hmm.
guy there. Fuck it, but they know who I am. They respected me because they've done business with me, and that's what opens up doors. So, learning, learning, you know, jump into the fire, run towards the fear. If there's something you don't understand, run towards it. If there's something you're insecure about, that's my approach. Run to it, man. Because you're always going to be at a disadvantage in these types of spaces because guess what? There's not enough of us in them. So you just got to get over that and run for it. I'll
Very
stop
good
there.
points. Very good points. I want to give a shout out to Jamel Gullery with a $50 super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, thanks for coming on the channel to teach us Jason. Man, I
Thank you,
appreciate
sir,
that, Jamel.
Jamel. And I saw your post in Facebook. Thank you. Pleasure to be here, man. And I'm just happy to be of service.
Excellent, excellent. Shout out to Ice Wody with the
Nice.
dollar 99 super chat.
He must be
He
from New
says, "How?"
Orleans.
Right, that's why I laugh because Atlanta, and New Orleans. You know how we
Hey,
get down.
my mom's from New Orleans. I get it.
Already. He says, "How do you feel about Udemy certifications?"
Yeah, Udemy is fantastic. Big
Mm-hmm.
fan. I've recommended Udemy for my sister to get her project management certification. Very good information. I think they're a big source. Coursera is also another one. Coursera. Coursera offers actually like you can take MIT courses in machine learning on Coursera. So Udemy, Coursera, um, the Google certifications are through Coursera. Big fan.
Okay. I got another question for you. By D7, he says, "Do you think COVID, specifically the revival of remote working, will reinstitute the idea of outsourcing to Costa Rica, India, or various other countries?"
Um, I think that's a complicated question. I'm going to break it down. So let's deal with COVID. So COVID has definitely upended the way that traditional businesses function. I think that there's going to be a long tail effect. I think that some businesses will stay in this sort of remote hybrid mode for the long term.
Hmm.
I think other businesses won't. It has a lot to do with the type of business you're in and whether or not you could be productive, in a sort of remote distributed fashion. As it comes to like the outsourcing idea, so a lot of people, so I also manage a startup, or I'm a co-founder in a startup, and we have a lot of offshore work that we do. So one of the offshore shops is in India, the other is in Uruguay. Um, the thing that I found is it's much more difficult to maintain quality control when you're
Hmm.
dealing with outsourced resources. Ultimately,
Facts.
you want
Facts.
to have a balanced portfolio of,
Hmm.
of, of resources where you have resources that are located in your time zone. That's another
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
Even though you can get work done for pennies on the dollar in India and Vietnam and these places,
Hmm.
sometimes they will be a quality hit. Other times they need to be available during U.S. business hours, and they can't be. There's a lot of factors, right? So
Hmm.
I don't think the pandemic is really going to upend that because really it goes back to the dollar, right? If you can get
Hmm.
work 20 cents on the dollar, I've also done work out of Ukraine. There's a lot of dev shops in Ukraine. Um, it depends on what makes your cost model work, but the pandemic is, I think, they're going to be some lasting effects, but certain businesses will go back to maybe the way that things were depending on the business. But I think any type of business that's been able to perform and be productive, I think you're going to
Hmm.
have a lot more options going forward.
Man, you made some good points there. I've definitely experienced that working with different developers in India, and they're texting you at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're asleep, and then you have to reply to them,
Right.
and they're asleep. So it's like you're losing days and
Yes.
time. And then, like you said about the quality, sometimes I would always try to do my graphics in America somewhere. If it's in type of UI design or any type of graphics, I get them done in America, and
Yes.
I have the Indians to try to save some money on the coding part of it because
Yes.
if you get them to do the graphics, some of them might be good, but it's just not. All our designs are different. Like
Right.
their billboards and signs
Yes.
in India looks way different than our
That's right.
billboards and
They
signs
have
in
different
America.
design language, different design thinking.
Exactly.
Totally. Totally.
So if you have I would say your design, our designs are important in America, and we would have certain text that will
That's
relate to
right.
us, right?
That's right. A
Like
certain aesthetic.
just how the letters look.
That's right.
They might not understand that no matter how hard you try to explain to them.
That's right.
So you
It's
definitely got to
cultural.
have
It's
it's a
cultural.
cultural thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But I
There's
want to ask you
aesthetic.
this.
Yeah. Hmm.
I want to also ask you this: why is it that the Indians are so involved in technology, right? So many of them involved in technology. When you go online and you try
Yes.
to get any work done,
Hmm.
web programming, anything is going to be,
Yes.
dominated by either people in India or
Great question.
possibly Eastern Europe or even Asia to a certain degree. Why
Yes.
can't we get those jobs specifically for our black youth, our black boys and girls?
Great question. That's a complicated question. So shout out to the Indian mafia. I have a lot of very close connections with Indian brothers and sisters out in the valley. They've been very good to me. To answer your question, um, in India, particularly in southern India, uh, maybe a or so ago, there was a big push at the primary and university level to train up people in computer engineering and sort of tech related, industries, because that country as a whole is sort of trying to build up this middle class. So that's the first part of that question. And that's in Asia in general. Like, I've
Hmm.
done a lot of business all over Asia, and man, they don't play when it comes to learning and doing, sort of becoming masters of certain industries. That's just what they do. Um, when it comes to the black community, it starts with us, man. We don't have a culture of scholarship, unfortunately, and that
Hmm.
is not our fault entirely. Like we have had it
Hmm.
hard in this country. It's been a fight. Just the black family. There's a lot of history we could break down. Even just the last 50 years, if we look at that, has a lot to do with um, the fact that you don't really see us represented. The pipeline hasn't really existed. So it starts with us. It starts with making technology and making really education sexy for us. We don't tend to when I was growing up, man, I was when I got to the military, I was big into martial arts, but part of that was because I used to get beat up a lot when I was a kid because I was a nerd.
Hmm.
It's not sexy. We don't tend to value that as much as a group of people, and that's a place where we have to improve as a group. And I feel like black men, the leadership, that's part of our job. I have a 15, 16-year-old nephew, and I'm big on pushing him to focus, on his academics, his schoolwork, trying to hone in on where his interests are. I'm not necessarily just trying to make him an engineer, but I'm trying to expose him to that, show him what it can do. So part of it is, one, we don't have the access to the information. You know, the community as a whole, this is not something that we really just see that we could have access to. And you brought up a good point. This is the
Hmm.
point I want to drive at. This is
Hmm.
the difference between being a producer and a consumer.
Facts.
Unfortunately, the black community in this society, and this is intentional, has been trained to be consumers, even when it comes to technology. So
Hmm.
black folks use more technology than anybody else. Every
Hmm.
sort of social media platform,
Hmm.
investing, which I have some feedback about that, back to that as consumers, but we don't think of ourselves as producers of technology. And that's what has to change. I'm a producer of
Hmm.
technology, you know, and you can become, anyone can become a producer of technology. But for me, I don't really have much interest in consuming the technology just because I never have. I mean, I use it, I love YouTube, I won't lie, but social media, not too big on. Facebook, that's the only thing I use. I'm not into
Hmm.
Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. I use LinkedIn because it's a great networking tool. But my primary interest is to be a producer of technology, not a consumer.
Hmm.
So to that point, I want to talk a little bit about crypto because I know there's a lot of brothers are interested in crypto, and I just want to provide a
Okay.
little game. Yeah.
Okay. Before you go there, okay, let
Yeah.
me catch the super chat real quickly.
Yes. Yes.
By Brick Jones. He says, education and incubation is the key for
Yes.
us.
Spot on.
Shout out to Brick Jones for the $5 super chat.
Yes,
Now, I
sir.
want to ask you this real quick before we get to the crypto. And shout out to Kev. Kev is in the building as well. I know you
Kev.
watched that crypto show with Kev. We'll get to that in a moment. Um, is it a way that we can create some form of media to almost popularize tech within the black community? Like, do we need to form some type of organizations? Do we need to have, how do we popularize it? Because
Yes.
that's where all the jobs are going.
That's
Everything is going to be automated. Even trucks are
yes.
going to be automated soon. And I
Yes.
don't want, kids to kind of, well, this new
Yes.
generation to come out and not have anywhere to work or
Right.
be low paying jobs and low
Yes.
quality of living. How do we
Yes.
popularize the tech space?
Great question. So in China, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of the social media platforms like TikTok, in China, obviously, is not a democratic country. They control a lot of things, that their people have access to. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is that for teenagers, school age teenagers, say between the age of 12 and 16, 17, after a certain time, they're not allowed access to certain social media platforms. The stuff that they are allowed access to is science, engineering, math related content. So
Interesting.
that's the only thing they can access after a certain time. So if
That's
you really think
very.
about that,
Hold on, real quick. The
yeah,
the whole entire country is like that.
yes, yes.
Oh wow,
But
interesting.
China's notorious. China is a surveillance state. China's
Mm.
notorious for, obviously monitoring internet traffic, controlling internet traffic, and that's just part of how they get down. But one of the things that they do is they curate and they monitor what their children consume.
Like kind
There's
of like a
there's
cut. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what we need to do too.
there's some, I would say there's some pluses to that. It's a more extreme version, but
Hmm.
the point about making this real to our youth, what's being done to our youth on all these platforms? Bullshit. You look at the average TikTok, it's just garbage. We're not
Oh,
pushing.
it's
It's
bad,
terrible.
man. It's
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 bad.
so many bad. It's so
Yeah.
many young black men
Yes.
that have lost their lives because of
Yes.
them going back and forth on social media.
On social media, and
Hmm.
it's being a consumer, right, versus the producer. A lot of Silicon Valley that I've worked with, and you even further up the food chain, don't give their kids
Mm.
access to social media platforms or even phones because they know it's designed. What drives engagement is negativity. Positivity doesn't drive engagement. And I mean, this is Facebook's business model. I won't say that too loud, but the problem is for the Black community specifically, we don't have that consistent message of, you know, be builders. You know, you have to create a society. You have to build the society. Nobody wants to
Facts.
build. You know, we want to go
Facts.
consume. So I'm a builder. You know, and so entrepreneurs are builders. You know, so that's what we have to change. You know, and that starts with us, man. As Black men, I'm sure many of you men have families. Like that's a message that you can start to propagate. You know.
Hmm. Most definitely. Most definitely. Shout out to the humble one with a $4.99 super chat. He says, "Can you get a high paying job with associates in software engineering?"
Yes, you can. But the thing is, I can't tell you do A, B, C, D. But what I can tell you is figure out what the next hill is you take. Once you get that first job, what more do you need to learn? Like I said, maintain a constant state of learning. Before I jump into the next thing, one thing I want to touch on, Aaron, is
Hmm.
in technology, part of what creates opportunity or is value. So there are all these spaces that are opening up, and this is going to bring me back to crypto at one point. But
Hmm.
if you guys are interested in technology, and this is a long-term thing, guys, like I said, there's a short-term path, long-term path, tactical, strategic. This is more strategic. Look at the landscape. Look at the changes that are coming. You want to be at the front of the wave. You want to try to find where is there going to be movement? What hasn't really broken yet? Become the expert in that. That's what I did. I got into video platform engineering before streaming became before it was everywhere. And I rode that wave up. So that's what led to me being able to make well over 250. I mean, I made, it's being in the right space at the right time. For me, part of that was luck. I had a mentor that once told me success is about three things: skill, luck, and opportunity. Notice skill
Hmm.
comes first.
Hmm.
You got to develop those skills. Luck, with the right skills, luck will connect you to that right opportunity, and then you go up from there. So yes, and I know guys in Silicon Valley, some of the most brilliant guys I know that didn't even get degrees in engineering. They got degrees in music or didn't get degrees at all. One of the most brilliant men at Facebook right now runs their entire encoding division. I won't mention his name. You can look him up on LinkedIn. Went to DeVry. Went out. He was at Netflix before. I
Wow.
mean, he's a rocket scientist. So
Hmm.
ultimately, it's about your passion, your interest, and you seeing gaps in what you need to know.
Excellent, excellent. I want to give a shout out for the $10 super chat by Mark Burnett III. I really appreciate that super chat. So let's get into some crypto, man. I know you watched the crypto show last week. What's
Yes.
going on with crypto, man? One of my
Um,
favorite subjects to talk about.
so I'm going to disappoint a bunch of fellas by saying I don't invest in crypto, and I'll
Hmm.
get into that. But I study and I research crypto heavily. I've been researching crypto and blockchain for years now. In fact,
Hmm.
one of my close friends here in Atlanta is a big investor in crypto and also decentralized technologies. Um, and
Hmm.
so the reason why I haven't invested in crypto is that one, it's not really my bag. My personality has never really been um, high risk in that way. Um, I
Hmm.
get the fundamentals. This is the reason why I wanted to talk about crypto earlier. I talked about being a producer versus being a consumer. I feel
Hmm.
like many of the approaches are consumer based. There's constant, sort of, and I get it. Look, you make the decision. It's your money. You get to decide what you want to do. But what I would
Hmm.
encourage you to do is think more like a producer, meaning what's behind the crypto? What are some of
Hmm.
these other technologies out there? Blockchain, smart contracts, uh, decentralized finance. There's a whole world of technology that's opening up that over the long term is going to create wealth. And so for me, my interest is on that other side. So my good friend that, I'll barbecue at the house. If you guys are in Atlanta and interested in coming by a crypto and blockchain session, He comes over and, like I say, this is a full-time job for him. That's the other thing. Investing in general, for me, don't, right now, the bet that I'm making for myself is I want to create value in other ways, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the money that I've made, I want to use that into my startup or to build runway out for other things. If I put that money in the market or if I put that money in crypto, then I really can't use it. And because it's high risk, you've got
Facts.
to really
Facts.
know the market, play the market at the right time.
Facts.
Look at fucking Netflix. Look, their stock dropped 21% in one day. Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Facebook. Just last week, their stock dropped like 25, 30 points
Did
in a
you see
day. Yeah.
did you see what the CEO of Amazon? Well, I don't know if he's still the CEO, but what's the guy name
Bezos.
who owned? Yeah, you see his video
No, I didn't
when
see it.
he said that he looked at the raw numbers, he looked at all the departments and all the sections, and all the numbers were up, but the stock was down.
Yeah.
So it's a little market manipulation going on there.
Yeah, man. The thing about the market is, and I look at it like this. It's for the people that have just institutional money, you know. Now
Mm-hmm.
I know guys out in the valley, I've done well, but I'm not like that. I know guys in the valley that have really made good money in the market, but they have a lot of money to play with, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it too. Like with crypto, I feel like you should look at crypto as it's a high risk thing. Yes, high risk, high reward, but in my mind, I wouldn't put more than 10% of my money in crypto at any one point in time. What you want to do is research the utilities. It's all about utility. So
Facts.
look at blockchain applications. Look at certain banks that are forming partnerships with these blockchain platforms. Um, that's what you want to follow. That's what you want to invest in long term because utility means that they're going to create value over time.
Mm-hmm.
Speculation is just, it's kind of gone here today, gone tomorrow. That's what happened in the housing market. It's like if you're over leveraged and in this highly speculative market, you've got to ask yourself, where's the value that's underpinning it? Now, I do believe in that there's value in crypto. I don't think that we found it yet. I think that it's going to be longer down, further down the road when crypto is you have certain countries that are implementing crypto. You have certain cities. So Miami has its own crypto token, crypto coin. Um, so there certain governments, cities are incorporating crypto into their economic models. I think that's a big sign. So I'm not crapping on it. I don't want guys to be mad at me. He's like, oh, he's not saying that. What I'm saying is take what you're doing in crypto and balance that out with the producer version and saying, hey, look, what can I get involved in that has a longer tail? What are some of these other platforms? What's happening in this wider part of the space, like with blockchain? Blockchain is revolutionary. What powers crypto is smart contracts. But how many of you guys that are investing in crypto right now understand how blockchain works?
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait.
No, that's facts. That's facts. That's facts. I will say this about investing in general, though. Always invest in yourself first. If you have an idea where you can
Yes.
control your product, you can control, certain things, I would suggest starting a business.
Yes.
Investing in crypto to me, the money I invested, it was not like, 9 to 5 money, bill money, anything like that. It was assets money. Money, if I
That's right.
lose at the end of the day, I'm not gonna just be like out of
That's
luck,
right.
right? So I would always say, invest in yourself first, man.
Yes, I
So
agree.
we've been at it for a little minute, man. I appreciate you
It's
coming
flown
on. I'm
by.
gonna go. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show, but I
Okay.
just want to get your last thoughts on
Yes.
as far as leading more brothers into this to these fields so they can make a good amount of money.
Yes. So guys, this has been like a Cliff Notes version. I want to work with Aaron and figure out, if we need to maybe have more of these panels. And I'm trying to figure out a way, maybe starting like a little coaching business for guys that are interested that want to get deeper details. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing to remember, and OG Bobby Johnson, thank you. Skills, skills, skills. You know, and I have a list that I wrote up last night, and I have 10 things to keep in mind. And so, guys,
Okay,
you know,
before you do that, do
yes,
you have a YouTube channel? Somebody asked me, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do not. I do not.
Okay.
I don't have the time right now.
Okay, got you.
But that's a commitment too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna stay connected and make myself available for people that want to reach out and have a deeper conversation, get more information.
Okay.
So my 10 things that I call the playbook, and I've said a couple of them, but I'm gonna read through the whole list, and this is at the 1 hour mark, so you can go back and write this down. First thing, maintain a constant state of learning. Number one, stay curious. Learn, learn, learn. Number two, there's a short path and a long path, but no shortcuts. Tactical versus
Facts.
strategic, but you got to do the work. Number
Facts.
three, become a producer versus a consumer. Number four, network, network, and network some more. Number five, take risks, measured risks, and then take more. Number
Mm-hmm.
six,
I like that.
become an expert and ride the wave. Figure out where you can become an expert. So all you guys that are getting your certs, look at that cert as your first, blue belt in the dojo. You want to get that 5 degree black belt. For me in streaming and platform stuff, I'm that sensei now. But it took that. I had to go through and learn everything. Become an expert. Ride the wave. Number seven, and this is the big one. Expect the grind, not luxury. Expect the grind, not luxury. What I'm talking about, guys, is 60 hours a week minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I run a consulting business, but I'm also running a startup with my business partner. So I'm putting that 60, 65 hours in a week, best believe. And I've made money. Never stops. Expect the grind. Number eight, and I got this from my dad. It's lonely at the top. Don't
Facts.
seek company. It's lonely, fellas. You guys get to that, it's lonely. Don't seek company. Number nine, push to the next hill. Don't seek comfort. You got to be about it. Always look for that next hill. What's the next thing I need to do? And just keep, and that's how you get there. And number 10, and I think most importantly, acknowledge your shortcomings and have patience. Acknowledge your shortcomings. You've got to give yourself that grace. Hard. Don't be too hard on yourself. Everybody starts from somewhere. So acknowledge your shortcomings and have patience. And once you work back up to the top of that list, you're going to deal with those shortcomings.
Great, man. Good info, man. Great interview, bro. I'm
Thank you,
gonna have
brother.
you on once again real soon. Appreciate you
Yes,
coming
sir.
on.
Yes, sir. Take care,
Stay on the
guys.
line. Stay on the
Thanks,
line,
Aaron.
bro.
You got it,
All right.
man.